Employment in the formal sector showed some improvement in the second quarter, though the employment picture still looks dismal. Stats SA's quarterly employment survey measuring employment in the formal sector shows total employment increased by 42,000 or 0.4% in the second quarter compared to the first 3 months of the year. The statistics agency says the growth was largely due to an increase in community services. There were, however, decreases in employment in the manufacturing, business services, mining, transport, trade and construction industries. Total employment decreased by 144,000 or 1.3% when comparing June 2023 against June 2024. Full-time employment has decreased while part-time employment increased. The year-on-year basic salary wages increased by 36.8 billion or 4.4% between June 2023 and June 2024. The local economy remained subdued in the first half of the year, weighed down by structural challenges and low confidence. Well, to give us some analysis on the latest numbers, I'm joined by Ntombi Mbele-Thomo. She's an independent economist. Thank you very much, Ntombi, for joining us. So 0.4% increase on a quarter-on-quarter basis, not really shooting the lights out. And it seems as though the main driver was really community services. Your immediate take?
My immediate take is that there is still a big struggle when it comes to employment, and particularly sustainable employment that is able to absorb the majority of our economy, and civilians who are predominantly unskilled. And so the challenge is still very imminent, and the crisis of employment is still a big problem in South Africa. Yeah,
and then very worrying as well is that we're seeing that on a year-on-year basis, jobs reduced by 1.3%, which tells us, we continue to have these structural problems. And of course, there are many layers to it, the lack of electricity and so on and so forth up until this period.
Absolutely. But I think what is prevalent and important from this number is that even when you look at full employment, from an annual point of view and as well from a quarterly point of view, full employment has been declining. And so that's giving you a picture that when it comes to sustainable employment and people being able to keep jobs, that is still a challenge in the South African economy, firstly. But secondly, when you look at even the quarter-on-quarter growth of 0.4%, the net is actually a decline, because the net is negative if you compare 0.4 to 1.3, which is the decline in the year-on-year basis. There's a net loss of employment. And so I think that must also be categorically stated, that when you also look at the sectors that have the ability to absorb a lot of unskilled workers, that is manufacturing, mining, that is construction, as well as transport. Those sectors have shown that even on a quarter-on-quarter basis, they are not able to keep people productive and employed during this year. And so that already is an indication that when it comes to sustainably creating industries that have the ability to absorb the majority of laborers in the country, we still are struggling as an economy.
Yeah, I think one of the themes that continues to recur and is worrying is the casualization of labor. We see that there's a shift from full-time employment to more, contract-based employment, which means that you have less rights and so on. This seems to be increasing.
Absolutely. And I think in a time where we're also recognizing that even with people who are in full-time employment, some of the regulations are not fully followed by the employers. An example is how we've seen with the two-pot system, a lot of people being shocked at the fact that, what they view in their pay slips as being able to pay for pension funds doesn't actually get to contribute, or is not really reflecting when they want to make use of their pension funds, either for sustenance reasons or either to be able to repay debt. So that's already showing you that there is a big flaw and, lack of effectiveness of regulation when it comes to the employment environment in South Africa, where even the ones who are formally employed, the ones who are permanently employed, are not really able to, when the need arises, be able to exercise and make use of their financials that they've been saved by the employer on their behalf. And so you can then imagine, when you now take that into at least formalized, at least regulated not full-time employment. So that already kind of indicates that there is a lot of regulations that we still need to enforce to ensure that laborers are protected and that laborers are, in essence, able to, live in a sustainable way in this economy without there being prejudice in terms of the employers sometimes abusing their lack of knowledge.
Yeah, one last one. Are you excited about the structural reform agenda and how it looks like it's being implemented? Or is it really a sort of a Pyrrhic victory, even if that is conquered, because we haven't actually fixed our education system to be able to feed people properly into an economy that can properly absorb them?
Sure. I think there's two parts to answer this question. One is that it can be congruent that you are fixing the issues in the employment sector while you are fixing the issues in the education sector, and that we don't need to really wait for the education sector to get into a standardized form that is able to feed to the needs of the employment environment. You can right now, with the imminent need that is prevailing around the employment structure of South Africa, be able to engage the structural policy as we've seen the government do, but also now with more urgency and more vigor, but also with more clarity as to the specific departments that need to be given that responsibility. In my view, I feel that the Industrial Policy Hub, which is the Department of Trade and Industry in this country, is much more responsible around creating employment that is sustainable, employment that is structurally addressing the issues of inequality, in issues of poverty and issues of unemployment. I think that the base of the industrial strategy that is being given by the DTIC will then feed into, example, the Labour Department, will then also feed into the Department of Small and Medium Enterprises, because that will be the national structural policy of the South African economy. But it must therefore be steered directly and with a bit more robustness and vigor by the Department of Trade and Industry, and not just be given to any other department which is not really supposed to be steering the growth of this economy.
Ntombi, thank you so much for your time and your insights there. Ntombi Mbele-Thomo speaking to us. She's an independent economist.